All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the executive session?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The executive session has ended. Item 301, public hearing on the 2024-2025 proposed annual budget and correction to final revision on the 2023-2024 budget. Eric Thompson.
All right, President Miller, Superintendent Dr. Driscoll, members of the board, thanks for having me tonight. I'm going to start with the correction of the revised budget. So when I was preparing this next year's budget, you always use kind of last year's and look at it. And as I was doing it, I realized it looked like there were some links. There's a lot of links. It links to prior year budgets, to the DSEG budget, to all these budgets. And my guess is that when we emailed it, I emailed the Excel version rather than printing it to a PDF, making it static. So when I emailed it out, my guess is some of the links got messed up. And so as I was reviewing it for this year's budget, I'm like, that's not right. So just to make sure that we get everything correct, that's why we're going to be voting on that one again, because I want to make sure, I want to submit it back to the state, but I want everything to be approved and be open and transparent. And there were things that were not what they were supposed to be, and I think in the future we're just going to be sending the PDF versions and attaching those rather than sending the Excel version. Okay, so then we have the proposed budget for this upcoming fiscal year. And so I will say this is somewhat of a rough draft because we do not have a budget from the legislature yet. So the requirements, the timeline that is set by the state, we have to have the budget adopted by July 15th. You have to have a proposed budget at least 10 days before that, have a notice of a public hearing 10 days before that. So based on the calendars that we have, this is the day we would have the proposed budget, and then on the June 26th meeting is when we would have the adopted budget. Otherwise, we'd have to have special meetings in there, which we could do, but I don't know when the state is going to get a budget, so what we can do is go through this process and then have revisions later on. So it is basically calendar driven. That's why we are here today. Because the state does not have a budget, I am assuming a 2% base funding increase, because per statute it has to be 2% or inflation, whichever is less. And inflation has been greater than 2%, so it should be a safe guess to put that 2% on there. The legislature could come back with more. I would assume that they would not. I'm going to assume it's just going to be the 2%. So there's different revisions that we can do. So if there is a revision that would impact the tax rates, we can do a revision by September 15th, and so there probably will be, because whatever the state will come back with, it will probably impact it. So we'll have that opportunity to go ahead and revise it again before September 15th. And then we have a normal revision time, December 15th, if that's required, where we can do that as well. So I'm not going to get into a lot of detail on this budget because it's not going to be right. And we're doing the best we can on it, but it's going to be revised once we get the numbers from the state. So we're doing this because we have to do it by this specific time, and it's a rough draft. It is a guesstimate because we don't have any hard info from the state. I will go into more detail on the budget in that revision that we'll do before September 15th, because that's when we will actually have some hard figures and accurate figures to use at that point. So one thing I want to remind people about the budget is, for most of the bigger funds like M&O and capital, they are budget formulas, and we will budget to the capacity of the formula. Because if you don't, you will lose that money when it rolls over to the next year. So our budget capacity is probably going to be about $110 million in M&O. We are not planning to spend $110 million in M&O because we'll need to keep some back in reserve, essentially for a rainy day, because we don't want to be living paycheck to paycheck on that. One of the reasons that we want to have that that carryover is the current year funding aspect of it. I don't know how much funding we're gonna get from the state because our funding is based on the first 100 days. So because of that, we need to carry more carryover than we would if we were on prior year funding because we would know exactly how much we have. Because of that uncertainty, we need a little bit more of a cushion because if we lose 600 students, that funding is gonna greatly decrease than what we have now. So we still need to have some carryover in there to give us that flexibility if something goes wrong. So I don't have hard final numbers, but you can kind of figure out where things are gonna go based on assuming just the 2% increase and some other assumptions. So we have had continued decrease of enrollment. Hopefully that steadies out for this coming year, but the overrides do use prior year ADM numbers, so they decreased from the prior year. So we'll see a decrease in the M&O override, so that will decrease the funding a bit on that. Another big part of it is last fiscal year, the state gave school districts some one-time funding into the funding formula, so it was not baked in to go year over year, it was just one time. Our portion was about $2.5 million. So from what I've heard, that will not be renewed coming up in this future year. So that would be at least a $2.5 million decrease from that. So it'll go up a little bit with our 2% and then down with the $2.5 million that we'll lose in that one-time funding. Tax rates projected to decrease on that one as well for a couple different reasons. School districts in Arizona tax to the dollar level. So if we need 110 million, we will figure out the rate to get to that 110 million. It's not just, all right, a 3%. So as property values go up, the rate would go down if we need that 110 million. So that's one reason the taxes are gonna go down. Decreasing enrollment, if we need less money, we need to tax for less of that. We haven't sold bonds in a few years, which will likely change in the next few years, but we're not taking on more debt, and we have to, when we pay the debt, we have to levy the taxes to pay for that. So we haven't had that in a few years, so that has helped keep the tax rate down a little bit. And then adjacent ways, that's another funding source that we levy when needed, and we don't need it this coming year. When we do, we might, between 1 and 2 million a year, we might levy for that, but we're not anticipating needing that this coming year. Likely the following year, so fiscal year 26, but not in this upcoming fiscal year. So on the next steps, we will adopt, hopefully, the budget on June 26th. And then once we get the details from the legislature, once they pass the budget, then we will do the revision by September 15th. And that's where I'll get into more details because we'll actually have a good set of numbers at that point and go through it that way. And then if need to be, the regular revision in December, and then we'll definitely have a revision in May just to finalize it because then we'll have the 100-day numbers all set. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Eric. It's only taken me a few years to understand this process, but you made it very clear. With our ADM declining, is the projected budget based on the declining or where we were last year?
I projected it a little lower, not quite 2%, but just rounded it down by about 100 or 200 students, about something like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you.
All righty, with that, item 401 is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 402, approval of tonight's agenda.
I make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 501, approval modification of the minutes from the May 15th governing board meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes from the May 15th governing board meeting.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to item 601, tonight's consent agenda.
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. We've passed tonight's consent agenda. As part of that, I wanted to thank Let's Go Composting, Central Christian Church, the Undie Chest, Sun Produce Co-op, and then finally City of Tempe and Redon, Arizona for their donations, especially City of Tempe and Redon, Arizona, theirs being $145,029.86 of donation. And Mr. Begini.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll. We have a lot of smiling faces out in the audience today. We have some returning leaders, we have some growing leaders, and we have some new leaders that we want to recognize tonight that you approved on the personnel summary. I'm going to start with tonight you approved Miss Monica Allred to the position of Director of Communications, and I'll share a little bit about her background if you don't already know it. Monica earned a Bachelor of Science degree in journalism from Bowling Green State University. She brings an extensive background in education and communications, serving in such roles as producer, network executive producer, public information coordinator for the Tempe Elementary School District, Director of Communications and Community Engagement for the Deer Valley Unified School District, and most recently as Senior Director in Marketing and Strategic Communications at Arizona State University. Those who know Monica best have shared that she is a highly respected and knowledgeable leader who has established herself as an expert and trusted mentor in her field. Monica has twice been awarded the Gold Medallion, the highest award given by the National School Public Relations Association. She is excited to be back in the Tempe Elementary School District family and is ready to implement the knowledge and experience she's gained over the years to the TD3 community. Congratulations, Monica Allred.
Thank you. Don't touch that first lesson. Thank you, President Miller, members of the governing board, Superintendent Driscoll, and Mr. Lemon, you can come back home. And I'm following in your footsteps, and it just feels so good to be here. I'm supported tonight by my husband, Jason, and my new team. And I'm really happy to get started. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll, you also approved tonight Miss Erica Bradford for the position of Principal of Geneva Epps Mosley Middle School, and I'll share a little bit about her background. Erica earned a bachelor's degree in education from the University of Phoenix and a master's in educational leadership from Grand Canyon University. She brings a background in education, serving as a fourth grade teacher, instructional support teacher at Nevitt Elementary, TOSA at Geneva Epps Mosley Middle School, and most recently as the assistant principal at Shamley. Those who know Erica have shared that she is an educator that always advocates for her students first, and an individual who prides herself on building strong and lasting relationships with her students and colleagues. Her current colleague, Mrs. Sternberg, has additionally commented that she is patient, dedicated, not afraid to use her mama voice, and always makes sure that she does what is best to support students and staff. She is beyond excited to be the principal of Geneva Epps Mosley Middle School and is ready to utilize her strengths to make our district a better place. Congratulations, Erica Bradford.
There we go. Good evening. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Driscoll, and district leadership team. I am humbled to stand before you in this place. Thank you for providing me with this incredible opportunity to return to Geneva Epps Mosley Middle School in the position to lead and serve. I am also thankful for my principal mentor, Vernice Sharp. In her wisdom and her love for educating others, she has demonstrated patience, grace, and servitude. She answered my questions and listened to my very many ideas. I am grateful for the great principal models I have met along the way, Mr. Lebowitz, Mr. Maruka, Mr. Padmanabhan, and Mrs. Sternberg. I need to also thank my husband and my two beautiful daughters for their continued love and support they have shared with me so far. Thank you for sharing me with the many students and teachers I have supported. Rita Pearson once stated, "Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be." I strive to continue on the path of being a champion for every student. Thank you again for this opportunity.
All right. Tonight, you also approved Mrs. Bethany Blazevich to the position of Assistant Principal for Geneva Epps Mosley Middle School, and I'll share a little bit about her background. Bethany earned a Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree in photography and a Master's in Education in Special Education from Arizona State University, and a Master's in Education in Educational Administration from Grand Canyon University. Bethany brings a background in education, serving in such roles as special education teacher, student achievement specialist, and most recently as the TOSA at Frank Elementary. Those who know Bethany have shared that she is skilled at building rapport with students and supporting them with whatever they need. She is a positive force on campus and carries a permanent smile, which places all members of the school community at ease. Bethany is overjoyed to continue her career with the Tempe Elementary School District. Congratulations, Bethany. Nope, you're good.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Driscoll, and the district leadership team. I want to thank you for providing me with this incredible opportunity to serve and support the Mosley community in the role of assistant principal. I'd like to also introduce and thank my two sons and their dad. Colin is 8th grade going into high school next year. He just finished at Connolly. And Patrick is headed into 7th grade at McKinney. So we are TD3 through and through. And their dad, Scott Kurz, for always supporting me. Otherwise, I could not be doing the things that I have been doing these past several years. Thank you once again for the opportunity. I am beyond excited and thrilled and grateful, and I cannot wait to join Ms. Bradford's team and the Mosley community. Thank you once again.
Mr. President, members of the board, and Dr. Driscoll, I have to introduce the third member of their team. Tonight, you also approved Jessica Kane to the position of Assistant Principal for Geneva Epps Mosley Middle School, and I'll share about her background. Jessica earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree in Theater, Dance, and Film, and a Bachelor of Science in Elementary Education from Keene State College, and a Master of Education from Southern Connecticut State University. Jessica brings an extensive background in education, serving in such roles as science teacher, program coordinator, cognitive coach, and most recently as the assistant principal at Fountain Hills High School. Those who know Jessica have shared that she excels at putting systems in place to streamline processes and enhance efficiencies to ensure that every student has access to resources and the support that they need to thrive. She's excited to start her journey here with the Tempe Elementary School District and eager to join the Mosley team. Congratulations, Jessica.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, Dr. Driscoll, and the district leaders, thank you for the opportunity to be part of your school community. I hope to use my experiences and knowledge to support and further your initiatives of the district. I want to thank my husband, Ian, who couldn't be here, and my daughter, Mary Ruth, and my son, William, for always supporting me in my desire to be a school leader and knowing that I sometimes have to put them aside so I can take care of my work family. I'm looking forward to the many opportunities to grow and lead here in Tempe, so thank you very much for the opportunity.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll, you also approved one more individual who unfortunately couldn't be here tonight, but I'll read a little bit about their background as well. Tonight you approved Mr. Paul Gagnon to the position of principal of Fees College Preparatory Middle School, and I'll share a little bit about his background. Paul earned a Bachelor's of Arts degree in History from the University of Arizona, a Master's degree from Eastern Oregon University, and a Master's in Educational Administration from Grand Canyon University. Paul brings an extensive background in education, serving in such roles as classroom teacher, assistant principal, and most recently as a coordinator of AVID and secondary professional learning. Those who know Paul have shared that he is passionate about education and has a meticulous attention to detail, which fuels his passion for providing structures for students to become independent thinkers and managers of their learning. He's eager to join the Tempe Elementary School District and is prepared to put in the work necessary to continue making futures bright. So congratulations to Paul. And then I have to remind everyone that after this portion, you are free to leave. You don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting.
I try not to take offense with the eagerness with which they always leave the room. Moving on, 701 presentation, City of Tempe Growing Together Grant. I think Maddie Mercer.
All right. Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Thank you. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, I won't touch it again. Well, thank you so much, Mr. President, members of the board, Superintendent Driscoll, for having us today. We're very excited to speak with you about some new partnerships. My name is Maddie Mercer. I'm the Neighborhood Resilience Coordinator in the Transportation and Sustainability Department, and I'm joined by
President Miller, board members, Superintendent Driscoll. Richard Adkins, I am the urban forester for the city of Tempe. I've been working with the school districts for the last 4 years, planting a number of trees and doing projects throughout the system.
Yeah, and today we'll be providing some updates on some new projects that have built on the partnerships we've been building over the last few years. So I'll give a quick overview of our partnership. My colleague Evelyn Brumfield was here a few months ago and talked about some of the tree planting work that we've done with the district. We'll give a quick update of the Grow Local Tempe project, which is focused on school gardens and garden-based education. And then we'll dive into our new initiative, which is called Growing Together, and talk about the school greening program. And we've got some pictures down there of some of our past work with schools in the district, including a treeathon at Connolly, some new garden installation and planting at Shamley, and then some maintenance training that Richard led a few months ago with the facility staff. So at a glance, we're really dedicated to doing work with our districts and our schools here in Tempe, and that's driven by our climate action plan update that guides our office's work. So when we were putting together this plan and interviewing stakeholders to see what kind of actions they wanted us to pursue to combat climate change, Tempe's youth were very vocal and insistent that we focus on projects that advance community greening to help cool our city and create new vegetation and create new projects that expand food access through urban agriculture and other initiatives. And so these projects that we're talking about today are a direct connection to some of that work that we heard from our partners. As I mentioned, some previous activities that we've done include tree plantings, staff trainings, and various landscape and garden refreshes, and we're excited to build upon those projects with these new initiatives that we're talking about today. The first that I'll go over briefly is the Grow Local Tempe initiative, and this has been a 2-year project that we're just now wrapping up that's been focused on developing plans for expanding food access in urban agriculture by partnering with schools and our community facilities. And so through this work, we've partnered with 2 schools within the Tempe Elementary District, as well as various community partners to build out some plans for new initiatives at Thew and Connolly. And I'll talk a little bit more about what came out of this planning process in the next slide, but I wanted to just highlight some of our other community partners that have been involved in this work. This is a picture from just a few weeks ago. We were at Thew doing a cooking and gardening demonstration with the 2nd grade class with Blue Watermelon Project. And so we've gotten to do planning with the community and students and staff and teachers, as well as some actual demonstration and engagement during this planning phase. So as a whole, this project has had 2 main phases. The first was really focused on understanding community needs. And that's not just community members as in residents of Tempe, but that also includes teacher needs, administration, principals, families of students, really wanting to talk to all of the different partners in this work and hear what kind of food access needs and what kind of vision they have for how we can improve the food system with them participating in it. And so after we did a period of assessment, various community workshops and events, going to schools, having discussions with administration and leadership, we identified some plans, or we identified projects that will be based at 5 different sites. 3 of them are schools and 2 of them are within TD3. So high level overview of what came out of this planning process. These are the 3 main components that are proposed through our next phase of this Grow Local Tempe work that we're soliciting funding for right now. The first component is a school garden specialist, so this would add some additional capacity to Thew and Connolly to do this garden-based education work. So it can be an extra non-teacher staff role employed by the City of Tempe, should give some insight on how teachers can use the garden as a teaching tool and help to facilitate some of the food access and education programs at the school sites. The second focus is on gardening and cooking education, working with students and their families. So we've proposed an after-school garden and cooking education program that we would partner with Blue Watermelon Project to implement at Thew, and then a composting initiative to divert food waste from the landfill at Connolly. Again, these ideas came out of many workshops and conversations with community members and staff so that we could make sure that we're providing opportunities for people to interact in the food system how they want to interact in the food system and help shape it in a way that makes sense for their goals. And so the composting and food economy initiatives would help to divert that food waste from the landfill, as well as create opportunities for students to learn about different career pathways in the food sector. So moving on to the current initiative, this is still related to our green infrastructure programs, but this is called Growing Together, and it's our newly funded initiative that we received grant funding from the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Forest Service and the Arizona Department of Forestry and Fire Management in Arizona to do this work. So the purpose of this grant is to really expand our efforts to mitigate extreme heat and provide urban cooling and increase our tree canopy coverage in neighborhoods, schools, and the rest of the community. And so on this map here, you can see our project focus areas for this work. Over the next 3 years, we'll be working on a variety of greening initiatives, working with schools and communities to plant trees and care for them in the long term.
And the overarching goals of this Growing Together program, first we're looking to expand and maintain Tempe forest canopy. That has been my mandate. It was given to me by City Council. And that's not only planting new trees, but that's also maintaining the mature trees that we have. That's how we're going to expand our tree canopy. And by doing that, we're going to be promoting the equitable urban cooling and resilience throughout all the communities here in Tempe, as well as the town of Guadalupe, who we are also partnering with. And this also works to help create workforce development opportunities with on-the-job training that we'll be doing with the district staff as well as neighborhood community members, which all just goes to expand the capacity so that we can do this throughout the city. Expanding our green infrastructure initiatives as well as maintenance opportunities and helping to fund staff positions that will be working within the school district, which all four of those go to just develop the connections, not only between the city staff, the district staff, and the neighborhoods, but just as we look to do more green water infrastructure initiatives, develop our urban agriculture initiatives, and teach more about the benefits and values of trees for our community.
And as we do some of that connection and try to integrate some of these initiatives that are all focused on expanding green infrastructure, cooling our city, and creating more resilience, we're working with a range of different partners to do this work. Like Richard mentioned, we're partnering with the town of Guadalupe, as well as some community-based organizations who will be helping us with some of the community-facing recruitment and program development. And we're very excited to talk about the School Greening in Grounds program today, through which we'll be partnering with Tempe Elementary School District.
So basically, this program is broken down into 3 different components. So I'll just give you a brief overview of each, and then we'll go a little bit more in detail of each of these. First is the Community Tree Stewards program. This is neighborhood-centric, neighborhood-based, working with community members to be trained, provide service, as well as provide information to learn how to grow, plant, and care for trees with people in that community. Second, and probably most important here to the board, would be the School Greening and Grounds Maintenance program, where the city is looking to put 3 additional staff members to work side by side with school district staff on tree planting and tree maintenance activities through all of the district. And with that will also become some training and professional development opportunities, not only for the staff that we'll be hiring over the next 3 and third years, but for district staff as well, as interest is shown. And then the third component will be our food forest pilot projects, where we're looking to put 2 new food forests together and for the community. And this is just looking to the design, the installation, the maintenance, as well as educational programming at these food forests to show really how this can be taken home to further provide resilience and sustainability actions for the community.
So the first component of the Growing Together initiative is the Community Tree Stewards program. And although that's focused on neighborhood engagement, it still has potential to impact and benefit schools within the district. So this program is available to any residents living within those highlighted areas on the map. So whether that's student families or staff, this is a program that aims to build capacity and create new opportunities for folks who are interested in learning how to grow and care for trees. And through this program, participants will be paid a stipend to learn not just in the classroom, but out in the field in doing applied work, caring for trees in neighborhoods, whether that's along their street or at a school nearby. This is an opportunity to engage more people in this work and, again, create cooler corridors and connecting points beyond just the schools that we're working with through the greening program.
In the School Greening and Grounds program is where, like I said, we'll have 3 positions. There'll be 1 specialist and 2 maintenance techs. The specialist will be a 30-hour-a-week position, and the maintenance techs will be 2 20-hour-a-week positions. And they will be coming out of the city staff, working out of my office. We'll provide them with all their transportation tools and needs. But they'll be working alongside of district staff at each of the properties, helping to maintain trees, transfer information, plant trees, and just work to maintain the investment that's being put into the schools. Again, like I mentioned, training and professional development opportunities will be provided not only for these 3 staff, but for district staff as well, as they are keen. And like I said, it builds on our previous investments. I mean, we've been planting trees in the school districts now for going on 4 years, and realize we're adding infrastructure, but we're not adding maintenance dollars to the budget. And I mean, that's something that I've come to realize as an urban forester. That's what I tell my city council as well. We can plant trees and add infrastructure, but we need to provide some maintenance dollars behind that. So with this, hopefully with these positions, we can do some cross-training and work alongside and take care of that opportunity.
This list of schools is where the new city staff that will be working with district staff will be eligible to work. They fall within the grant boundaries of the program. They serve the grant neighborhoods. And so while these are the sites where these additional staff can add some capacity, those training opportunities in collaboration with district staff go beyond just these schools. And so there's a lot of opportunity for shared learning and professional development with both the city and the school staff. And the final component of the Growing Together initiative are 2 food forest pilot projects. Just wanted to emphasize again that we're trying to integrate our food initiatives, our greening initiatives, water harvesting, because these are all components of a resilient city. And so this initiative will create 2 demonstration sites that will be available for education and volunteering so that folks can come to learn how to grow food and care for trees you can eat.
And so I know you'll say, well, that seems like a lot of programming over the next 3 1/3 years. So how are we going to do this? Okay, we were funded in March. So in April, we met with all of our community partners and we started working with district staff here to start putting the program together, putting our curriculum, our training program together, and then how everything is going to work together. And we're start looking at how we're going to hire staff. We started putting our position descriptions together, worked with district staff on those, and I think that's almost complete, and we're ready to put those out on the street to start hiring. Then we come into August and September, we'll be finished that recruitment and hopefully have staff on site ready to start just behind the school year so they can just come hit the ground running with school district staff. We'll also start our community tree steward program recruitment at that time, using our community leaders to pick people from the community that will want to be involved and learn more training and start building that capacity. And then in September, we hope to start the first training program with our community tree stewards. We'll hope to have the food forest designs already approved and in place and start to do that construction with the food forest, hopefully in the ground by 25. And then that first training, we said there's going to be 6 cohorts. The first will run from September to November. And then we'll start running 5 after that on a fall, spring type schedule to get all those cohorts trained. We'll go from, you saw we had a group in the Northeast and then kind of down in the Southwest. So we'll be alternating between those. And the whole time the school greening staff will be working throughout the next 3 1/3 years, just working with staff here. So that's kind of our timeline, how it's going. It's coming together quite well. And with that, we welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you both for the presentation. Really great information, and really happy to see that you guys received the grant and put in all that work. I have 2 questions. I know what a food desert is, but can you explain a little more what a food forest is?
Sure. So the food forest is kind of the opposite of a food desert. This is a way of growing food where instead of a traditional garden, you just have a garden bed with some vegetables in it. You're actually integrating trees into that area. So you're using the trees to provide shade and other benefits, and you can plant more food, different types in a more dense space. So this is a way that kind of mimics the permaculture model that could use less maintenance because it's operating more like an ecosystem than a really manicured garden.
Thank you. And then my second question was regarding the Community Tree Stewards Program. Is that open to any community member, or is that just for students or for staff, or who can be a community tree steward?
So anyone who lives within the project areas can be a community tree steward.
Awesome.
That's our only requirement.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, President Miller. Thank you for the presentation. I have a few questions for you. In terms of the workforce development, is it specific to urban forestry, or does it also include hydrology or anything else to support urban forestry?
Anything that will support the urban forestry basically is going to be more on the horticultural base, landscape maintenance, tree planting. Could be soil science, it could go into hydrology, but it'll be a lot of water management, irrigation management. So any of those schools and where, interest is shown, we're going to try to support them.
Okay, and then is that workforce development specific to adults, or are you opening this up to students too? So like our Connolly students?
It would be open to students as well, to like kind of a training program, see if there was interest, and try to guide them along ways and show how you can advance in this and how you can basically make a living doing these type of activities.
Okay, and then the school greening and grounds maintenance program, I absolutely love. I just want to know from Dave Farmer, is there any concerns that you may have about this process and this program?
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Driscoll, no, we've been working with the city of Tempe for the last 4 years, and I couldn't be happier when I sat down probably 6 months ago and met with these guys, and they explained this grant program to me. And with 261 acres of turf in our district, we can use all the support we can get.
I figured that would be your answer, but I just want to make sure. I also had a question about what makes schools eligible.
So the schools that are eligible just serve the neighborhoods of the grant, so their attendance boundaries just overlap with our project areas.
Okay, so that leads me to wonder if Rover could be included on that, because they already have a school garden and they're right next to, no? Okay. Sorry, I just saw shaking head.
We do work closely with Rover on the Grow Local Tempe project though, so their garden manager is one of our core consultants for that work.
Got it. And my last question is, I like that you track the through Connolly McClintock track for those kids so that they have that continual exposure to this. I was just wanting to know if you happen to know that Marcos has a native seeds program. So I saw Frank and Fees on there, and their natural next step is Marcos.
Okay.
And that might be a good option for you guys.
Great, thank you for sharing.
I have no further questions. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 702, presentation of master facility plan update. But before we get to that, we do have public comment on this. So on this item, so we need to view I believe the public comment video. And public comment will be limited to 3 minutes, but first video.
Persons wishing to address the board must fill out the request to address the board card and submit it to the board's executive coordinator prior to the start of the board meeting. Per governing board policy BEDH, public participation at board meetings, the governing board president shall set a time limit on the length of the comment period. For items on the agenda, individuals will be called upon when the item is introduced. For topics not on the agenda, citizens will be called upon during this portion of the meeting under Open Call to the Public. In compliance with the open meeting law, the governing board will neither discuss nor take action on items raised during this portion of the agenda. When necessary, issues will be taken under advisement and placed on a subsequent agenda. During the open call to the public, issues addressed must be within the jurisdiction of the board.
All right, I'll remind folks that you have 3 minutes, and it will start the moment you start talking into the microphone. So with that said, first up we have Eliza Henriksen. Eliza Henriksen?
Put it on 702.
And this is 702, so.
Yeah. Did I put the wrong number? She wants 801. They put the wrong agenda number on there.
If you both wanted to wait until the regular public comment on 801, that's totally fine.
Okay,
That's totally fine. We can hold up on that. Thank you. With that, Dr. Driscoll.
Thank you. Can, Ben, we switch the slides? I thought you guys were here to talk to me and he's working his magic. I'm prepared to go without, but I think, no, that's the city of Tempe.
I'm sorry, there's a mix-up somewhere.
Okay.
Hold that up for you.
Feel free to take this time to talk amongst yourselves. You're good. Feel like I'm on that Southwest Air commercial or Snickers commercial. There we go. Oh, no, you're good. All right. Well, good evening, Mr. President, members of the board. Today I have a presentation to talk about Tempe Elementary future planning. So as we start, as always, we look at our strategic plan, and the items that I'm going to focus in on are 3.2 and 3.3 of our strategic plan, with the emphasis on 3.3, strengthening specialized programs and our school options. Just before we start, I give us a little brief history. On November 8th, 2022, the Tempe Elementary community voters approved a $196.5 million bond. And one of the items that in there, we had a community survey. In that survey, 85% of our respondents indicated that safety, security cameras, et cetera, were of importance to them. So even though I'm not going to talk about that today, know that at a future meeting, we're going to bring that up about how we're going to increase security on our campuses in terms of cameras and those options, because that was one of the things that our community really wanted us to look at. On November 1st, we had Rick Brommer. He came in and talked about our student enrollment, and he projected our enrollment to decline. But one key point he talked about, he said that our some of our enrollment decline is projected based on the shrinking school-age population. But the most important factor to determine enrollment levels will be how the district responds to choice. And so one of the things he kept emphasizing is that even though he's projecting our student enrollment to decline, our district is a district of choice for many of our families in our community and outside our community. And how we do with offering choice will basically determine if we will decline at the rate that he was projecting, or whether we would stay even to even go up. On December 6th, the governing board approved some directives for me. One of the first ones was us revisiting our boundaries, which this year we completed. And so I like to thank my team, because behind the scenes, they did a ton of the work to get that, but our community was awesome. But our team did a lot of work in anticipating our community needs, making sure that they had all their questions answered. And so I never give them enough praise. So this is your only praise for the year. Thank you guys for doing it. Also at that same meeting, the board directed us to look at exploring early childhood center options, building a more robust gifted program, and exploring other specialized options for schools, and addressing middle schools, including career exploration. One of the things that our community has been steadfast is talking about our options at our middle school level. And so one of the things in this presentation is I'm going to give the board some recommendations what I think we could do to address those needs for our community. We've also tackling the big issue of what are we going to do with that $196 million bond and some of the things we told our voters we would do. On April 17th, we had representatives from Terracon present information regarding Connolly, Curry, Fees, and Rovers facilities. And one of the reasons why we had that company is we wanted to get a look at our actual facilities and the conditions of our equipment and some of our maintenance so that when we made this recommendation to you today, we had some information to say this is why we're making a recommendation because we believe it's fiscally more responsible to do this school versus that. I didn't want community members to come up to me and say, you chose my school because you like the principal at Fees or Connolly better than, and so I really want us to have some data to choose why we were picking certain schools. And so with that, I will go into some of my recommendations. My first recommendation, and I broke these up into phases, is that we start the process to rebuild, remodel Connolly and Curry simultaneously. And so one of the things that the 4 schools that I mentioned, they're all on the same plots of land. So both Fees and Rover are on the same plot, and Connolly and Curry are on the same plot of land. And being fiscally responsible, what I've been told from many people is that it is cheaper for us to build both of them at the same time rather than doing one of them and coming back, because when we do that, we will have the same people on that same plot of land rather than having contractors and architects come back. So we actually save money by doing them simultaneously rather than doing one and then another. So in the Terracon report, Connolly had some significant repairs, I think upwards of $20 million they were projecting over the next 5 to 10 years that we would have to do. Same thing with Curry. And so we've already told the community that Connolly, Curry, Rover, and Fees would be our schools. So looking and talking to our district facility, we believe that Fees and Rover and in a report from Terracon are a little better condition than Connolly and Curry, and we can maintain those during the long run. If we left Connolly and Curry, that the cost that we would do would be upwards of 20+ million. So that's why I was making that recommendation that we look at doing the rebuild, remodel for Connolly and Curry, because we would be paying in the next 5 years 20+ million just to maintain what we currently have. At the September 18th board meeting, I will be giving recommendations about the option where you talked about middle school career exploration. And in that, I put the caveat that in that recommendation, we might have to do some rebuilding or architectural design and construction because I don't know the physical site where that will happen. But I wanted to be transparent to the community that if we did something with middle school in career exploration, that we might have to look at existing buildings and do some work to make it actually meet those standards that we want to do. So the September 18th, I penciled for us to come back to the board to share our recommendations of what we thought would be a great option for us for middle school career exploration. At the November 6th board meeting, in tackling the board's directive to me for the Early Childhood Center and robust gifted programming, at that meeting, I would give you our recommendation for possible future sites for expanded Aspire and our Early Childhood Center based on our existing physical locations in schools. I also wanted to look at and give the board feasibility for expansion at Frank and Nevitt. One of the things that we see, and I've got community members from both who email me, the Frank community really wants it to be a K-8 school. And there's a sense of pride from the community that they want their kids to go there. And we have land. And so one of the things to look at as we look at choices, we are losing some of our students don't go, when they leave 5th grade at Frank, they don't go to Fees. They're going to KMS, that school district to the south of us. And so one of the things we have to look at is how can we capture our students and keep them there and give them options of choice there. The same thing with Nevitt. One of the interesting things that a parent told me is that because Nevitt is in Phoenix, their families are in Phoenix. And so when Nevitt students matriculate to middle school, they normally go to Mosley. What the parents said to me, my family doesn't live there and that's too far. So what they do is they go to a school closer in Phoenix. There's charter schools right next to the Nevitt area where we have a lot of our students go there because it's actually more convenient for those families to be in Phoenix to get that extra support. And so looking at possibly having Nevitt be a K-8 school is another thing. And then I wanted to start the process for getting an architect and general contractor for Fees and Rover. That's actually selfish, but also more practical for us because what happens is when we wait to build our schools, the money that it costs to build them goes up. So in 2016, when we projected to do Mosley, I think, and Dave's in the audience, so you can tell me it was like 25 to 30 million to do Mosley in 2016. And that sticker price came in at 55 million. So every year we wait, our dollar actually gets less to build schools. So to start that process sooner so that we can actually get the breaking ground on schools is my recommendation that after we do the architect design for Connolly and Curry, that we start that process to secure architects for the Rover Fees project. Phase 2 would be we would rebuild Fees and Rover simultaneously. Again, they're on the same plot of land, and it's more cost effective to actually do both at the same time and have that than to do them separately. We also would start the process of selecting architects and general contractors for Fuller, Spercali, Carminati, and Getz. And also in this, we have some Montessori families here. Looking at the expansion of Montessori to a possible pre-K 8 school. One of the things that I will tell you is that we have a tremendous need or community need for preschool in Montessori. And then as they go through preschool, then they like, oh, I want to go to Meyer and stay through. But then it drops off after 5th grade. And so what happens for a lot of our families, and when I was a principal, I had a Montessori program on my campus, they look for options after that. And so in most districts in the public school setting, they don't offer a middle school option for Montessori. And so one of the things that I would be asking for us to look at is see if we could do that for our community and have pre-K through middle school, so that if a family chooses the Montessori pathway in Tempe for their children, they would go there from preschool all the way through 8th grade when they would matriculate to Tempe Union for one of those schools. So I think it's something that we should look at. I think there's a need from some of our families, and I think we would actually draw families from other districts as well that have that Montessori, because there's not a lot of Montessori middle school options out there, at least in the public school sector. There are some in the private schools and in other states, but not in our local area. So I think that would be a draw for some of our families in our district, but also outside our district. And with that, I gave you a whole bunch of stuff, so I will stop and answer questions that you might have for me. Or people that work on the district leadership team, be prepared that the question might get thrown to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. Thank you for thinking forward, because I know inflation hit really hard the last few years with construction, et cetera. The dollar doesn't stretch as far as it used to. So I think it's good to consider all of the possibilities. But I would highly recommend if we can include the school leaders from Frank, Nevitt, and Meyer in these feasibility studies, because they're closer to those communities. My only concern is creating more, like you said, we may draw from other districts, especially if it's specialized like Montessori, but with other cases, I just have the concern about drawing students, because we are open enrollment for the most part. Are we just kind of drawing from our own middle schools? So I would consider the demographic information from the demographer, and in addition to how that would impact our existing middle schools. So thank you for bringing that forward.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dr. Driscoll. I guess I am a proponent of K-8 schools. One of the difficulties is that the 8th grade teachers have a certification for middle school or maybe high school or elementary, we tend to lose them. And particularly if we don't have a larger group of students in, 7th and 8th grade. And so I think it would be good to start the planning very soon for all of those sites, including Meyer, to talk about how are we going to build this cadre that we need to support that, number one, and how are we going to train the people that we already have to fill that need and grow with their students. Thank you.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Dr. Driscoll.
Thank you.
And with that, we're moving on to 801, open call to public, which we now have on 801. And we've already seen the video, so we don't need to see it again. I'll remind you, you have 3 minutes. It starts when it starts talking. We're not allowed to respond to public comment, and so when you're finished, I'll just say thank you, and we move on to the next. And with that, Liza Hendrickson.
Oh, there we go. Now it's green. Fantastic. Thank you so much for this presentation, Mr. Superintendent, and thank you, board members, for taking my comment and changing it to the right place. I was one of the first people to stand in line. I was number 3 in line in the middle of the night to get my son into Meyer. He's a 6th grader this year, and sadly, I had to make different decisions because of that lack of 6th grade in the 3-year cycle with Montessori. I have been a Montessori parent and educator for 20 years, and I have training in elementary, primary, and adolescent levels, and I've seen the miracles that happen with Montessori. It works great for all kinds of exceptional children, twice exceptional children. My own oldest 2 thrived in Montessori. They're successful adults today. My oldest said he was an engineer from the practical life exercises where he learned at age 4 to polish metal and wood and silver and things like that. He's an engineer at the Taiwan Semiconductor Company, had a full ride scholarship to ASU, and all from those early childhood experiences. That's where his love of science developed. I've seen other children not do well at other programs and do really well in Montessori. One of my students even got an Emmy Award. That 6th grade year is really important, but also having that middle school is really important. And I completely agree with you that as a teacher at multiple elementary Montessori programs, the parents are pretty desperate after 6th grade. They want something to continue with that same type of philosophy where their child can grow in independence and really do as much as they can do. I've had students come back to me after as 7th graders, oh, I was the student body president, but I didn't do as much as I did in 6th grade. We want those experiences to continue where they can, do amazingly big projects. I did my elementary training in Milwaukee, and the public schools there went from pre-K to 8th grade, and I saw how amazing this was in the inner city. I did my adolescent Montessori training at a grade 7 through 12 public school in California. So I know how well these things are, and I really support you in everything that you do to grow the Montessori program. I know people will come. Thank you.
Thank you. Brad Bolt.
President of the board, board members, and Superintendent Driscoll, thank you for this opportunity. I have been a Meyer Montessori parent for the last 6 years. My daughter Clara has attended Meyer since she was 3 years old. She's now entering 4th grade. There are no words to express my deep appreciation for the education that she has received at Meyer. As a former elementary teacher myself, I have been amazed at the high level of academic knowledge that Clara has acquired. Of course, many non-Montessori schools can deliver a high level of academic excellence. However, there are intangible aspects of Meyer that have surpassed my expectations. The Montessori way has provided my daughter with the ability to not only learn the material, but to truly understand what she has learned and how to apply it to her current and future life. However, the most important thing my daughter has received from others at Meyer is deep, strong empathy and love. Clara's first years of life were not easy. She experienced several life-changing tragedies in her first few years. Perhaps most notably, the death of her 17-year-old brother, Wade, killed by lightning at the top of Humphreys Peak in Flagstaff. It's 8 years ago, this coming July. I share this with you because I credit the culture and individuals of Meyer with helping Clara successfully walk through the trauma of these events that still affect her to this day. I share this with you because I can't imagine my daughter Clara carrying the weight of past traumas into the sometimes hostile territory of traditional middle schools. Middle school is hard enough for children under the most ideal circumstances, and I desire for Clara to attend a middle school surrounded by the people at Meyer who have brought her this far. Sadly, if a middle school component is not added at Meyer, my family will need to strongly consider leaving the Tempe Elementary District to seek other learning options. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of all of this.
Thank you. Moving on to 901, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Tempe Elementary School District and the City of Tempe for the Greening and Grounds Maintenance Program.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between Tempe Elementary School District and the City of Tempe for the Greening and Grounds Maintenance Program as recommended.
Second.
Motion by Monica, seconded by Charlotte. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Item 902, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of an intergovernmental agreement between Tempe Elementary School District and the City of Tempe for surveillance system emergency access.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement system between Tempe Elementary School District and the City of Tempe for surveillance system emergency access as recommended.
I'd like to second that.
Motion by Monica, seconded by Jim, and then a comment by Charlotte.
I would like to, thank you, President Miller. I'd like to discuss being able to visit this surveillance system office so that we can see for ourselves what all is involved and be able to explain to our families why this is important.
Mr. President, I actually have a member from the City of Tempe that actually has a presentation to show you guys about the real-time center as well, if you guys would like to see it.
Absolutely.
Hi, my name is Jared Morris. I'm the IT director at City of Tempe and would love to talk with you a little bit about this surveillance system or this surveillance program. So City of Tempe, like many other cities, has tried to create what is called a real-time operations center. It's known by different names across the valley and other areas. We're the third such city in Arizona to do so. One of the great things about, and I guess what I'm going to do is take you on a virtual tour, but before saying anything else, we do have a media day available on the 25th, Tuesday the 25th, next week, where we would love to have you all visit. Of course, we had Superintendent Driscoll view the Real-Time Operations Center before it was operational, but that will be kind of the first day that it's operational. We would love to have you come by and talk a little bit about what this may mean for the school system. I think it's great that you all have already talked a little bit about approving this, but I would love to give you a bit more background of what this program is in more depth. This is a very brief presentation. The first slide is all about what is a real-time operations center. And basically it's one location. This is from the City of Mesa. This is the City of Mesa's Real-Time Crime Center, which is a slightly different concept. But it's a location that all cameras from across the city go back to a single point in that city. And basically when an emergency occurs, in Mesa's case, when a police emergency occurs, then there's a response. Mesa has determined that they're able to respond to their events 5 minutes more quickly. That was again cited by the City of Phoenix when they recently announced a real-time crime center as well. And so by having people located in that center, we're able to get to emergencies 5 minutes more quickly. The vision of the City of Tempe is slightly different, and this is the visionary stance, of course. City Manager Rosa Anchasti, who was in the back with me, just a moment ago, and she enjoyed the greeting presentation, wanted to be here for this one, but she had another presentation she needed to go to as well. And her vision is that not only would this be information that the police department would be able to have, but all city services across the board. So that means fire, that means parks departments. I know that's very important to schools because many of the elementary schools back up against the park. And if we have cameras and other things in that areas that the park rangers, which is a new program in the City of Tempe, would be able to review and monitor that those are safe, that may help the schools in making sure that the students and residents and people that enjoy those parks are able to enjoy them safely. It includes also our Care 7 team, as our homelessness outreach, as well as any health and human services as well. They would have an opportunity to monitor these. The agreement that this board has reviewed and has looked out for clarity for the public is only to allow for cameras to be viewed during an emergency response situation, and that's kind of what we describe in this next slide. So what is not in our real-time operations center? It's many things, but it's not a replacement for on-site security. It's not a replacement for police dispatch or a replacement for 911. This is ASU. I love the City of Mesa's real-time operations center because it's very visually stunning. ASU, in my opinion, until our real-time operations center is live 2 weeks from now, it's one of my favorite as far as operations go. And I think this slide tells a lot. You have two operators near the front during a football game, and they have information that comes up on their screen, cameras and detail, only when a 911 call comes in. And so they have radios that they listen to, and what happens is that the lady on the right-hand side, to my view, I think it's on the right-hand side for you all as well, a 911 call comes in, dispatch is dispatched right away, and what she does is she goes virtually to that location. Immediately when that call comes in, she checks what is occurring at that location, what has occurred for the past. They have a review period of 7 days, which would not be the same for the school system, but that's what ASU has decided to do. And then she is able to relay to dispatch, okay, there's traffic at this location, you need to go around it this way. And by City of Mesa and ASU's determination, that saves police officer 5 minutes of response, which can be huge in an emergency situation. I talk a little bit about policing because that is what every other city is doing across the nation. No one else is placing or has placed the real-time operations center under their IT department so that every department is able to do that same thing. So that means for homelessness, again, for parks, for all these different services that the City of Tempe would have, we would be able to have this monitoring and be able to review. Of course, it starts with IT and PD, but it's the Tempe Police Department, but that's not where it ends. So going to this next slide here, I have two final slides before questions. And they basically focus on the next year. What is the next year schedule? Behind the bubbles, you can see this is our real-time operations center of the city of Tempe. It is now operational. Of course, Superintendent Driscoll saw it without the screens and all the nice lights and all the good things going on. So we have renovated, we have placed hardware at that location. We have hired 4 staff to be able to review cameras and be able to have some IT oversight as well. Those staff have completed their training for the different systems that we use. The system that we use is called Fusus. And in the next 60 days, we will finalize that implementation. We've already started that implementation. We're about halfway through. City cameras will be connected in the next 90 days. As soon as that is done, we will be working with school cameras. I'll go to the next slide and detail what that means. So the city of Tempe, again, we'll start with our own internal cameras. Arizona State University, as we saw, the real-time operations, they pay for the same system for themselves. And so it's a matter of, clicking a button, and then we have access to their cameras in an emergency situation, and they have access to our cameras. Recently, they had a Congress member visit ASU, and we were able to share our cameras with them, and they were able to monitor that person come all the way through the city of Tempe, through our transit system. They were able to see that they were able to come to the location where they were going to give their speech, and then all the way back to the airport. This is one of the reasons why the city of Tempe was selected for this last year, Biden's recent visit, the president's recent visit, because we have these sort of operations. There was a second visit in the city of Chandler. City of Tempe was again selected to monitor and help with that, even though the president wasn't coming to the city of Tempe. So it's this capabilities. The next bullet point, I think, is most exciting for schools. And what that means is that the city manager who was here today, she has authorized 150 camera streams to be given to every school district in the city of Tempe. With no charge, you'll have access to those systems. You'll have access to be able to collaborate with, if we have a camera that you may need to see, for example, I mentioned parks that schools go right up against, we're able to share that across. And that's at the city's cost in perpetuity, 150 cameras. That represents 20% of the cameras in the city of Tempe. Of course, we have 3 major districts, so combined it's 20%, not only, of course, with Tempe Elementary. Through year 2 and year 3 of this program, any additional capacity that we receive, we currently have roughly 2,000 camera streams. I know I'm getting into the weeds a little bit, but I get excited. I'm the IT director, so. When we go to 3,000, 5,000 cameras, that 20% will remain. So I am quite sure that in the next 3 years that will grow to about 300 camera feeds per district. And those cameras are up to the district, which ones they would want to be available in an emergency situation. And the agreement that is being, of course, drafted and being reviewed and signed off on, again, that's only for emergency situations. So the city of Tempe will not be reviewing cameras on an ongoing basis. It's you all that decide which ones those will be. After that, we'll proceed with Valley Metro and city businesses just to make sure that our residents, our students, everyone in the city of Tempe, that they're safe and secure in their parks and schools and as they travel and as they do business in this. We will not be, believe it or not, be giving camera feeds to Valley Metro, city businesses, or Arizona State University. It is only for our school districts within Tempe. That is my final slide. Happy to open up to questions. And of course, again, the 25th, 2 weeks from now, I would love to have you all available. The media is going to be there and talk about what this may mean for Tempe schools. But again, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, President Miller. Your slide, what it isn't, is pretty much what I wrote, which is, what is this not?
Yes.
And I love all the bells and whistles. I think it's great to collaborate together for the safety of our citizenry. But my concern is the what is this not? Beyond
Absolutely.
the 3 things that you listed, I worry about citizens' privacy and what can be seen, what can be misinterpreted, what isn't completely caught on the camera. And so I'm not prepared to vote on this until we have that. And I've RSVP'd to take that tour. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I work for ADOT, and we have an operations center. It's very similar to this. They have cameras all over the state, and they have trained individuals to look at that, but when they get a call, they can tell where the DPS needs to respond to, or the cleanup crews, or emergency from that standpoint. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I share Ms. Windsor's concern about the privacy and where the cameras would be, particularly in schools, because, you know, we have little kids doing all sorts of things, and some of them, we have to protect their identity to the public. And so I don't know how you work those agreements out from that standpoint, because they are minors, and that's what I'm a little bit worried about. But I think it's great to protect the kids. I think it's great for those golden minutes to be platinum, you know, to get the people there quickly from that standpoint. So I like the idea. You know, maybe we ought to roll out it in phases at one or two of the sites before we go citywide or to all the schools, would be one of my thoughts from that standpoint. But, you know, the software is already there. I guess the fiber optics are already there. And so I don't think it, you know, would be a tremendous expense from that standpoint. It's not an expense from the city, from the school district, as I understand.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you. I like the present.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we do have a motion, we do have a second. All those in favor say aye. All those.
I recommend to honor Ms. Windsor's motion or recommendation. I'm fine with tabling it if preferred, but I defer to you.
I mean, I would recommend tabling because I'm not comfortable either with voting this until at least our board members have had an opportunity to review it in person. So,
And Mr. President, would we put this on our calendar after people have had an opportunity to?
we have a June 26th meeting, which is we after
Okay,
the 25th
thank you.
viewing opportunity. So,
The motion table.
so yeah, I think we do have to.
I'd like to make a motion to table 902.
I'll second.
We have a motion to table by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to 903, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of an agreement with the Assistance League of East Valley for their Operation School Bell Uniform Program.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement with the Assistance League of East Valley for their Operation School Bell Uniform Program.
Second.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. 904, discussion, consideration, and possible approval of the proposed 2024-2025 school district annual budget. Do we have to make a motion on this? Because I think we have to have the 10 days for next week, or can we actually just approve the budget?
The approval just is essentially approving the posting of the notification for the adopted, and then you'll adopt the budget next meeting.
Very good.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed 24-25 school district annual budget.
Second.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item 905, discussion, consideration, and possible approval to pay the superintendent his performance-based pay pending satisfactory performance on the superintendent's evaluation. Charlotte?
I'd like to make a motion to approve to pay the superintendent his performance-based pay pending with his satisfactory performance on the evaluation.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Jim. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Finally, 906, discussion and first review of proposed changes to governing board policy IJNDB, use of technology resources in instruction. Do you have any discussion on the proposed update? Basically, it's just a big, long paragraph about generative AI. Monica, go ahead.
Dr. Driscoll, do you mind just briefly giving a little summary about this, please?
Yes, so as we are part of the board policy advisory, one of the updates is they made to this policy with the generative AI being a thing. And so the big change in this policy is they added kind of guidance for policy for use for students and teachers in the programming. I reviewed this, I want to say last week, and looked at the guidance that we had from the state future Arizona economy. I think I shared it with you guys before, and it kind of aligns with some of it, but I still think we as a district, even with this policy, should have our own policy on AI specific to just AI in addition to this, because I think it needs to be more in depth than just what this says about our own use and regulations of what we want our staff to do. So this is just a change of they added cloud-based systems because they didn't have that in there, and most school districts are using some form of cloud-based systems for storage. And then the biggest piece is their guidance on the generative AI.
Thank you, President Miller. A couple of questions about curriculum. I see in there it says teachers should include relevant lessons on correct and responsible use of AI. Would that fall to the actual teachers or digital innovators? Is that the right term?
We use Common Sense Media for digital citizenship, and we have highlighted some AI best practices for students in those lessons. They've already been earmarked for this.
Okay, I was wondering if it fell under digital citizenship. Okay, so then my next question is the blocking of websites. Like, are we trying to promote AI and the proper use of it, or are we blocking and saying no?
So it's interesting that you bring that up. Oh, excuse me. We've got a group that is actually meeting now as part of our data privacy agreement, and we're going through each website that students access. And so it's literally thousands deep. And we've had a committee that's working on that with the digital innovation team, the Blueprint team, our IT team, and what are websites that are being accessed by students, and making sure that we've got a data privacy agreement for those websites that do have students log in. So we are in the midst of doing that. We're part of a consortium. It's a nationwide consortium to try to get one step ahead of this. When we do find a site that is of concern, we do block those. And Ben, who was up here fixing things today, is our network security officer, and he is the person that blocks those sites. So when it does come to our attention, we block those promptly. But we are certainly not wanting to just arbitrarily go through and block every site. So when it is something of concern, it's blocked immediately. And then as we finish the data privacy agreement project, we'll certainly be coming back and sharing that with you on how we're navigating through that.
I just wanted to add one more thing. For AI, we do have AI sites blocked for students, but are open for teacher use right now until we can come up with a more succinct plan on how to tackle it with students.
All right, thank you for that. I know that Grand Canyon University has taken a different approach than most universities, and they are actually openly encouraging students to utilize AI. So I hope that committee can, ASU as well? I'm hoping that the committee can figure a way for our little ones to, and not so little ones, to be able to do that as well. Thank you.
There's no other questions. This is a first review, so there's nothing to vote on. So we're moving on to 10:01, to the student activity report. Any questions or comments on that? No? Then we move on to 11:01, board information. Monica?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to note that unfortunately I won't be able to attend the June 26th board meeting, so hopefully you have quorum because I do have a conflicting board retreat all day with another board.
Just want to mention that most of us were able to attend the Flagstaff ASBA Summer Institute, is that what we call it? And Leadership Institute, thank you. And really appreciate the opportunities to professionally grow in our boardmanship, and always enjoy being with our board. I just am not surprised, what's the word? Pleasantly surprised that we all get along so well and try to work together for the betterment of students and staff.
Yes, I was glad to attend the ASBA leadership training. I think that, I don't know how many I've gone to, but probably more than 18 is my guess. I just don't remember. Well, I remember what they taught us, but I don't remember which session it was. But I think there were some interesting things in talking to some of the other district governing board members and how they deal with some of these issues. And it was helpful from that standpoint to see that there are other solutions, particularly with some of the other urban districts. And so I appreciated that. And Ms. Ewers and I attended a couple sessions to find out what the federal government was requiring. It wasn't the Johnson O'Malley concerns from that standpoint, but we do have a lot of indigenous people in our district, and we don't have any indigenous land inside our district as far as I know. So it really, this other program doesn't apply. And we don't have a military reservation, so that doesn't apply. And so we're just our own little thing, and it's okay. And I guess that's all I wanted to talk about, other than I went to two other meetings by the invitation of the legislative district political people. And it's amazing how much information that they lack about school districts and our policies and what we're told to implement and what they'd like us to do from that standpoint. And so it's an education piece. And that's why I enjoyed what we saw on the slide here with the city of Tempe. You know, what isn't what we're doing? And I think particularly on library books selection, I got a lot of questions about that. And I don't know if we can see that quickly on the web page or not. I just haven't looked into it from that standpoint, and how we put together committees to look at things and take our time to get library books and things of that nature. So, but I think it would do us well to help educate the public what their government is, and the misunderstandings and miscommunications among certain people. It's dangerous, and from that standpoint. But thank you, Mr. President and members.
Moving on to 12:01, announcements, upcoming events. You can tell it's the summer because of how short it is. There will be an agenda committee meeting on Wednesday, June 19th, 2024 at 11 a.m. The next regularly scheduled governing board meeting will be Wednesday, June 26, 2024 at 6 p.m. with a study session at 5 p.m. in the Karen Arredondo Governing Board Room at the Sanchez Administrative Facility, which is this building. Item 1301, meeting adjournment.
Motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
Second.
Motion by Charlotte, seconded by Monica. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Aye, motion carries. We are adjourned.